Daf Kufnun Hey Amud Aleph will begin Kufnun Dalet Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. We just learned that Abaya said that as far as using the sides of a tree, everyone is Maida that Sdodim are Asurim. We had a Machlokes Tanoim by the Gabi the Sukkah. If you can go up into a Sukkah that one of the walls is a tree, Abaya learned that Machlokes Tanoim is not by Sdodim. Everyone agrees using the sides of the tree are Aser. The machlokes is tzidei on. If you have planks that are leaning or supported by the tree, and the schach is on the planks, so to use the schach, if one were to put something on the schach, that would be something that the schach is supported by the planks, which is supported by the tree. That's tzidei on. That's where the machlokes. But by the side of the tree itself, everyone would be moed that it's also. Now, the Gemara is bringing a different opinion. Rava says, Man also b'tzdadim, also namud tzidei tzdadim. Man the shari b'tzidei tzdadim, shari namud tzdadim. And Rava says, no, that they're both dependent on each other. If you say tzdadim are also, tzidei tzdadim are also also. If tzdadim are mutter, tzidei tzdadim are mutter, tzdadim are also mutter. If a person, he stuck a peg into a tree, and he hung a basket of food of bread from this peg. So this is a negeya, the din of Eruv, of Eruv Tchumim. To have an Eruv, person has to have the pas, the bread, what he needs for his Suda, that's where he's kind of shvisa, and from that place he can walk 2,000 hours. It has to be accessible to him, bein hashmashos. It has to be that the food is accessible to him. He's able to, bein hashmashos, on the onset of Shabbos, be able to eat it. Now, if the food is in one rishus and he's in a different rishus, it's not accessible. He can't get to it. So, if he sticks a peg into a tree, v'tala b'kalkola, and he hung a basket from it. If it's above 10 tfachim, it's not a kosher eruv, because the basket typically would have been dalet al dalet. And if it's higher than 10, then it's considered to be a rishus hayachid. So then the bread is in a rishus hayachid. And if he's in the rishus harabim, he can't bring the bread to him. It's not accessible to him, so it's not an eruv. It's not considered to be a malkum shvisa. Malkum shvisa is a place where he is resting, and this is his place where he's making Shabbos, where he's dwelling, and he needs the food with him to be considered a dwelling place. If it's not in his rishus, if he can't bring it to him, it's not a malkum shvisa, so it's not a kosher eruv. But lamatam yotvachim eruv eruv. Below 10, it's an eruv. Then it is, because consider that he is in the same rishus. The bread is not in rishus hayachid. He is in rishus harabim, and the bread is not in the rishus hayachid. Taisus asks, well, it's true that it's not a rishus hayachid, but if it's below 10, and it's dalet al dalet, and it's more than 3 from the ground, it's a carmelis. And so it still should be aser to bring the food to him, to bring the bread to him, because he's in Rishus Harabim, and the bread is in a carmelis. So Taisus answers that there is no carmelis b'kelim. That this Tana holds ain't carmelis b'kelim. So in a basket, the Rabbanan were not geyser carmelis. Taisus' second teretz is that it's bein hashmashos. And bein hashmashos, they were not geyser isur the rabbanon bein hashmashos. Now we'll see that the second teretz is somewhat problematic, but we'll see. We'll come back to this in a moment. But so the Gemara says, as far as the Rava's halacha, the Gemara says as follows. So lamatam yitvach v'eruver time denotes yos. Now why do we say that it's accessible to him? Because nos yos. He stuck in a peg into the tree, meaning the basket's not hanging from the tree. It's hanging on the stick, on the peg that's stuck into the tree. But if he didn't stick the peg into the tree, if it was hanging from the tree, even below 10, it would not be an eruv. So what do you see from here? So apparently, V'hayatana, this Tana, V'hayatana, the Ka'asar b'tzdiyastadim, v'kashor b'tzdiyastadim. The basket on the tree, would be using the tree, would be hanging from the tree, which is also. But if there is a yased, the basket is hanging from the yased, which is hanging on the tree, then it's mutter. So apparently, there is mutter that this Tana holds Dodim is also, using the hanging from the tree would be also, but for the sides, the yased is mutter. Amar Papa, no. It's no kashram, because hacha b'kalkola dechukaskina. It's with a kalkola dechuka, it's with a narrow, very narrow opening. So now, if you try to get the bread from the basket and it has a very narrow opening, you have to push your hand in. You have to forcefully put it in. So when you stup it in, if it's hanging from the tree, you're going to move the tree. And then you're going to be metaltel the tree, the muksa. So that's why it's awesome. It's not because of tzdadim or tzidei tzdadim. It's not because of you considered using the tree. The point is, if it's hanging from the tree, you'll inevitably be moving the tree. So if you're going to take the bread out, you're going to be moving the tree. And you're going to be moving the tree itself. And that's why it's also. But if there's a yaseh, the reason why it's mutter, it's not because there's a difference between tzdadim and tzidei tzdadim. If it's on a peg, then you won't be moving the tree. You'll be moving the basket that's on the peg, but not the tree. And that's why it's mutter. So that's why Rava maintains that there is no difference between them, and it's not a kasha from here. Now, the previous teretz that we had in Taisus, where Taisus said that Bein Hashmashos were not geyser on the Rabbanans, and that's why if it's below 10, even though it's a caramelist, it's mutter to take the bread. Well, then the question arises, Rabbi Kiva asks, well, what are you telling me that you're moving the tree? That it's also because you're moving the tree. That also is an Isser D'Rabbanan. Be mishtamish with an ilan is an Isser D'Rabbanan. And if they're not geyser on a D'Rabbanans, on Bein Hashmashos, so why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? Why do we say that you need a yaseh because otherwise you're going to be moving the tree? If you're moving the tree, that's a D'Rabbanan. They're not geyser on D'Rabbanans, Bein Hashmashos. So Taisa says there could be enough kamina difference in if we say that it's Yontiv, is Erev Shabbos is on Yontiv, and therefore there would be an Isser of using the tree because it's Yontiv. Because it's Yontiv and it's you're using the tree on Yontiv, it's not a Yom Chol. So it's not a regular Bein Hashmashos. Some Sefer gives a different teretz. He says, even though they're not geyser on a D'Rabbanan Bein Hashmashos, but if there's two D'Rabbanans, if it's Tarti D'Rabbanans, it'd be geyser. So if you have a caramelist and you're using the tree, that would be also Bein Hashmashos, and therefore it would be also to retrieve or to take out the bread from the basket. That's why it would be also. Al Kolpanim, we have this machlokes Abaya and Rava. Abaya says that tzdadim, everyone says is also tzidei tzdadim is a machlokes. Rava says that if you hold tzdadim is also, tzidei tzdadim is also. We don't differentiate between the two. The Hilchos of the Gemara says the halacha is, what's the maskana? The halacha is tzdadim asurim, the sides are also, tzidei tzdadim mutarim, and tzidei tzarim are mutarim. We do differentiate between the two, like Abaya, and to use the sides are also, but tzidei tzdadim is muter. Taisa says, why isn't this one of the Al Kagam? It seems that we hasken like Abaya, and the rule is that the halach is like Rava, except for the cases of Yal Kagam. Why isn't this also mentioned and one of the exceptions where the halach is like Abaya, not like Rava? Omar Avashi Al Kolpan. We see that the halach is tzdadim is also, and tzidei tzdadim is muter. Omar Avashi Hashad Amar tzdadim asur. Hi darga the midla. So now that we said that tzdadim is also, if you have a ladder that goes up to a watchtower, it's on a high watchtower. Loilincha inish adikla. you shouldn't have the ladder supported by the tree, resting on the tree, the havel tzdodim, because then you're using the side of the tree. It's tzdodim. Elalincha agavza lebar medikla. There should be pegs or sticks stuck into the tree, and the ladder should be supported by these pegs. So therefore, the ladder is resting on the pegs which are on the tree. And then it's mutter. It's not considered using the tree, and then it'll be mutter to climb up the ladder to the watchtower. And when you go down, you should not put your foot on the pegs, but you should put it on the rungs of the ladder. Because if he is using it, if he puts his foot, when he comes down, if he puts it on those pegs, those are tzdodim. Tzdodim are also. He should therefore put it on the rungs of the ladder which is being supported by the pegs which are on the tree, then the rungs are tzidei tzdodim, and it's mutter. Zog the Mishnah, matir and peki amir lifnei behema. You can untie bundles of straw for an animal. For the benefit of an animal, you can untie bundles of straw. The animal eats it, it's animal fodder, so you can untie it for the benefit of an animal. Now the Ramah speaks out, we're talking about untying, we're talking about whether it's not a kesher shel kayama, where the knot that was made in it is not a kesher shel kayama. If it was a kesher shel kayama, it would be also that's matir. So we're talking where the issue over here is tircha, that you're exerting yourself, you're exerting effort to untie these bundles of straw for the benefit of the animal. That's mutter. Umefas, keep it, and you can scatter for the animal, keep it. So the Gemara we'll see in the Gemara will define what is bekim, what is keepin, what these things exactly are. Avaloyas is zira, but zirin is also. Again, we'll see in the Gemara what this is. You can't cut up the shachas, animal fodder, or haruvin, boxers, caribs. You can't cut it up lifnei behema. Bein daka bein gasa, whether it's a large animal, a behema gasa, or a behema daka, it's also. But Rav Yehuda matir b'charuvin ladaka. Rav Yehuda says for charuvin, for a daka, it's mutter. So we'll see in the Gemara what's the explanation of this. So we have two approaches to the shot in the Mishnah. The first one is Rav Huna. Amar Rav Huna, hein piki and hein keep. These are both bundles. They're both bundles. They're both bundles of straw. Piki and tray. Pekian means that it was tied twice. Kipin, plosa, they were tied 3 times. What are zirin? Zirin, the arzi. Zirin are branches of a cedar tree. Now, normally these branches of the cedar tree would be left to dry out and used for firewood. They can be used for animal fodder. It's not normally used that way, but it can be used. Sometimes it is used that way. But in order to make it usable, you have to it needs more preparation. So, this is Pshat in the Mishnah. You're allowed to untie the pekin that has a double knot of the amr in front of the behema, and you can either even spread it around, you can even scatter it around. That makes it more edible for the animal. Once it's spread out, then it has a better smell, a better aroma. It makes it more appetizing for the animal. And the same halacha applies to keepin, where it's tried 3 times. Avaloyas is zirin, but zirin, the cedar branches, you can't. You can't do either. You can't untie it, you can't scatter it. Both are awesome. What's the pshat? Amar Rav Chisda, my time with Rav Huna, kasavar lamitrach buchla tarchina. He says something that is an oichal, to just improve it, to make it better, to make it more palatable for the animal, that you're allowed to do. But to make something and take something which is not an oichal, and now to take the cedar branches, to take the zirin, which is previously is not in the status of a food, it's going to be used for firewood. So to take that and now to now make it, to untie it or scatter it, so to make it into an oichel for the behema, that is awesome. We're allowed to improve something, but to make it into an oichel, that type of tircha we don't allow you to do. That's how Rav Huna learns the Mishnah. Frag the Rashba, well, if you're saying that this is not an oichel, and now you're making it into an oichel, why wouldn't this be a problem in any event of a muksa? Why isn't this a muksa problem? Now we'll see in the coming approach, in Rabbi Yehuda's approach, he learns differently. And he learns that you could make something into an oichel, as we'll see shortly. But why isn't this a problem of muksa? So the Rashba says it's only muksa if these were designated for that purpose for the entire Shabbos, if you wanted it to be that way. But over here, he doesn't want it to be in the status of the woods that's going to be used for fuel. He wants it to be used on the Shabbos. He wants it to be used for animal fodder. So it does not have a status of muksa. So now we have Rav Yehuda's approach, which he learns differently than Rav Huna. Rav Yehuda Amar Hein Pekin Hein Zirin. He says Pekin and Zirin are the same. They're both bundles. They're both bundles. Pekin and Zirin are the same. Pekin tray, Zirin tlosa. Pekin are 2, but Zirin are tied 3 times. Keepin, means that we're talking about the cedar branches. You can untie the bundles of pispuse loy, but you can't spread it around. But the keepin which he learns are the cedar branches, you can even scatter it around. But zirin, which are tied 3 times, you cannot scatter it around. You can only untie it. So he learns differently. He learns we're matir more, we allow you to do more by the cedar branches than we do with the bundles of straw. Why is that? Amarava, my time at the Rav Yehuda. What's the reason? Because you can make something into an oichel. The cedar branches, which were not in the status of oichel, here he said you could make it into an oichel. You could do what is necessary now to make it edible for the animal. If you don't do these actions of untying it and scattering it, it won't be edible for the animal. So to do these actions to make it edible, you can do it. But to be mitzvah v'uchla, to be terech for something which is edible, and already is edible, and to now just to enhance it, that you're not allowed to do. You're allowed to take something which is not considered an oil, which would not be edible, that you're allowed to do, and you're allowed to then do what's needed to make it edible for the animal. That you can do and make it edible for the animal, and therefore you can untie it and you can spread it around. But something which already is edible, just to enhance it, that you're not allowed to do, that you can't do. It says we learned in the Mishnah, you can't cut up the shachas, the animal fodder, or the carobs for an animal, bein dak or bein gas, whether it's a dak or a gas. My love, charuvin dumir the shachas. So we're putting that in the same category. So my love, don't we say that the charuvim, the carobs, are dumid the shachas? Ma shachas the rachiche. Normally the shachas animal fodder is soft, it's edible. Av charuvim the rakiki. It must be that it's soft. And it says that you cannot cut it up. You cannot cut up these things for the animal. So alma loitachina ba'uchla. So this is something that it's an ayachal. Cutting it up would just enhance it, would just make it bitter and make it more palatable. And you see that it's also let's see if it's Rav Huna. It's a kashan Rav Huna. Omer lach Rav Huna loy. He says no. Shachas dumi the charuvin. It's the other way around. The shachas in this case is similar to the charuvin. Ma charuvin da akushi. The charuvin are normally hard. As shachas da akushi. It's hard. So what you're not allowed to do is to make it into an oichel. What you're not allowed to do is to take this, which is not so edible, it's not so palatable, and what you're not allowed to do is to cut it up to make it more palatable. Whereas we have a case that we would say that shachas is considered too hard. It's not an oichel for an animal. That's what they normally eat. So be'ile is zutre. We're talking about young donkeys, very young ones, that even this is too hard for them to chew. They're very young and they don't have strong teeth, so even this is hard for them. So it's also because it's shavi uchla, not because you're enhancing the food. You're making it into an oichel for these types of animals. Tashma, I'll ask you a kasha on Rav Huna from the following. Rabbi Yehuda matir b'charuvin ladaka. Rabbi Yehuda says that charuvin for adaka is mutter. Ladaka in lagasa loy. Now Rabbi Yehuda is only matir for adaka, but not for agasa. Now, amrat b'shlom, if you say Tanakama savar mitrach b'uchol tarchinan, if you say that the Tanakama says, well, this is an oich. You can't be toireach for an oichel. Something already is an oichel. Just to enhance an oichel is also. That's what Tanakama holds. Shavu mashvinan. But you can make an oichel. Hainu the kol Rav Yehuda charuvin ladaka namish aviochlu. So that's why Rav Yehuda is matir. That's why he is matir charuvin to a daka, because that's considered shua shavi oichla. You're making an oichel because the behemoth daka, specifically the daka, can't eat this. It doesn't have strong teeth. So he holds that is also considered to be shavi ochla, making ochla is mutter. L.E. Amra, but if you say Tanakama Sarash Shavochaloi Mashvinam. But if you say the Tanakama holds, like you Rav Huna, that to make the Eichel is also, but Mitrach Vuchla Matarchinan, you're only allowed to enhance an existing Eichel. Rav Yehuda the Matibah Charuvin Ladaka. So if he's talking about enhancing Charuvin Ladaka, what do you mean? Kol Shekan Lagasa, if it's mutter is only enhancing and not creating, well, if it's only enhancing, then Charuvin ladaka, why should it be Charuvin ladaka, specifically for a daka? Certainly for a gasa, it's not considered make shavya oichel, it's not making the oichel, it's only enhancing the oichel for a gasa. So it should be mutter, not Charuvin ladaka, it should be mutter across the board. If he holds that this is considered to be, then in this case, that it's enhancing, so Rav Yehuda matir the charuvin ladaka, it should be his mas certainly should be matir charuvin legasa. So therefore, doesn't that show you that that's not the pshat? That's not the pshat in the Mishnah. That what is also in what is the Tanakama is answering. The Tanakama is saying that it's also to be mitrach ba'uchla and not to create oichel. And what Rav Yehuda is saying, that for a daka, this is considered to be shavi ochla. The Gemara says, no, misavra daka. What do you think that when it says behema daka, it means like we normally say, behema daka means a daka mamish means a small animal? No, that's not what it means. My daka means really it's gasa. It's really referring to a behema gasa. It is referring to a gasa, meaning what he's saying is that it's called a gasa. This is considered enhancing the food, and it's mutter. It's considered enhancing the food, and therefore it's mutter. It's mutter for a gasa. We're talking about a gasa. Why is it called daka? V'mai korelei daka, the daika b'uchla, because it chews it very well. It's not a behema, it's not referring to the size of the animal. It's called a behema daka that's medayek b'uchla, that it chews it very well. But really, it's talking about a behema gasa. This is what he is referring to, and he says over here, this is enhancing an existing eichel. That it really means a behema gasa. Correcting more, how can you say that? Maliktani Reisha, the Reisha says, Bain Daka, Bain Gasa. The Tanakama says that you're not allowed to cut it up, whether it's a daka or a gasa. So gasa means a large animal. So clearly, daka in this context means a small animal, like we normally refer to a behemoth daka as a small animal. So therefore, B'chalal the Rav Yehuda, daka mamish kama. So therefore, when Rav Yehuda says is referring to a daka, it has to be in reference to what the Tanakama said. And he's saying gasa, and the daka, the Tanakama referred to a daka, literally a small animal. So Rav Yehuda, when he says daka, is daka mamish. It's kasha, it's taka kasha.